Okay, everyone, welcome back. Tonight, I thought I would kind of switch gears a little bit. Rather than just always building the libraries, I figured I would go back and actually work on building out an application. Way back in some of my old streams, there was a project I started on called SimplyBudget that I had used sort of as a jumping off point of here's a starting point for building a WPF application, just to sort of explain the basics and that kind of thing. So if you're unfamiliar with kind of MVVM or that kind of thing, I will leave a link in the description of the video when this posts on YouTube for people to go and watch. It's a pretty good introduction, but secretly I picked that name for the application because there's an app I had been working on personally, largely with the target audience being me and my wife, just for managing our money. Right. So when we first got married, we had gone through a financial class, and like most stuff, it was designed for newly married couples to figure out how to manage your money because that's something that apparently people fight about, and we found it very helpful. And so people do all kinds of ways of budgeting and that kind of thing. The important part is finding something that works for you. I think the only thing that's irresponsible is not doing anything. Right? You should always manage the money that you have. So what I'd been doing internally is moving away from Excel spreadsheets because that was a miserable nightmare, and building out my own application. So it's been a private GitHub repo, and this is a project that I started on many, many years ago. So please don't hold it against me. It's been brought forward and initially was a WPF framework application. At one point in time, there was a bunch of Telerik stuff, and this was when I just started barely learning WPF. And I've slowly come back to it. For a long time, I got the app working. We were using it for several years quite happily. And then I wanted to go and start making some changes to it. And I opened the source code and cringed a little bit at some of the stuff that I'd written in the past. So I decided, let's start modernizing it. Let's bring it forward. I wrote this before I'd even started doing anything with material design. So naturally I had to bring material design into the UI and bring that forward. So let me switch and I'll show a little bit about the app. And then we can go a little bit further. So here's the application. The repo is still private, but my intent is after tonight to kick it public. So that will probably be a thing. I have a little, nope, not that corner. That corner on my green screen is going to leave there's that little bit floating in the corner. Hang on, I got to make that, that's going to bother me to no end because I can see that little itty bitty dot. Stand by one moment. Let's just crop that top bit off. Boom. I see no dot anymore. Okay, so here is the application. I'm going to let this guy fire up and then we'll come back to my breakpoints in a minute. So here is the application. Don't mind the colors. I have it set up currently. It picks an obnoxious color theme when in debug mode. I found myself accidentally making mistakes when in debug versus not. So I decided, that's probably not a great experience. Let's stop doing that. So I started working on it, and a lot of the UI is still fairly fresh. Lots of stuff needs work. This is clearly a work in progress, but again, my target audience was more or less me. So it's great. Wasn't planning on necessarily publishing it or putting it anywhere or that kind of thing. So this is the basic view that it comes in. So for people unfamiliar with it, there's expense categories, and we like to do what's called zero sum budgeting, meaning that every dollar that comes in and every dollar that goes out gets assigned to a particular bucket. And with all of this, even on our real budget, there is this miscellaneous bucket. We just found that zero sum budgeting is great, but there's always that oddball thing or something comes up or it's how do we want to do this? And so my wife and I's agreement is, you know what? We'll just have a miscellaneous bucket. We'll put some in, we'll take some out. We use that as our buffer to just kind of smooth the curve. It makes things work a lot easier. So what this is here, and ideally what you would do is you would go in and you would see you'll note that it switched the tab from the top one here down to the next one. And this is effectively a transaction log. And unfortunately, right now, you'll know there's nothing. This is a bug. This is what I was trying to fix before we started. Didn't get that far. And so between these two views, this is where most of the interaction takes place, at least as far as viewing it. Obviously, you can hit the button, you can add in new transactions, you can add in income items, you can transfer money between accounts back and forth, and that is largely the bulk of the application. It's just designed to manage dollars in, dollars out, put them in appropriate buckets, build them out. But it has presented some fun little challenges of trying to just get the UI and UX that I wanted. You'll note it does keep track of this kind of so the amount for your monthly budget goes in this first column, and as you can see, I've got a margin problem between these two values. Add that to the list. And there's two categories. There is fixed dollar amounts, and then there's percentage-based stuff. So if you want to go through and do this, and don't laugh at me too badly, rather than dealing with decimal points, my solution when I first built this app has been measure everything in integer values of whole pennies. So for those people outside of the U.S., a penny is effectively our smallest unit of currency, which is great, except for sometimes that gets to be a little weird. So there is code in here that rounds everything to an even penny, and has to do some stuff to make sure that there's not like an extra penny left over or shorting one or whatnot. And for the most part, again, for the target audience, it works great. Is it a robust solution that I would use to measure currency on high-end stuff? Probably not. That's a bad idea. Largely the rationale behind it was the data is being stored in SQLite databases. When I started this, I didn't even use N80 framework or any ORM. Straight SQL in and out of the database. Not a great solution. It has now been upgraded to EF Core with SQLite on the back end, which is great. I've got high aspirations of moving this into the cloud, maybe doing a nice little mobile port to be able to view this kind of stuff. Again, target audience me. So, I don't know, maybe we'll pull out some .NET MAUI or something. But for now, what we would like to fix is some of this stuff. So, specifically around this here. So, what I had started on, because before I open sourced this, before there was a whole bunch of my own personal data hard-coded into here. And so I've been cleaning up the repo, stripping that out, rebasing, force pushing, erasing history, all that kind of jazz. Where was I going? So as part of this, when the app starts up, ideally when the database is empty, that's bad. There should be a starting state. So was working on this generate state to go through and do it. And there's some old data classes floating around, but there's pretty much, and let me put the app back up. There's pretty much only a few tiers of data, right? So at the most basic object is this expense category. It's just a bucket, dollars in, dollars out, right? It keeps track of its budgeted amount, current balance, monthly expenses, all of that stuff, right? And it even calculates out, in order for this budget to work, you would have to have a monthly income of $1,275. And it currently has a concept of accounts. So each expense category is linked to an account because at the end of the day, I want to validate that the information in my little app here lines up with what I actually see in my bank account. And so being able to link these things and tie them to either like a savings or a checking account, which is what this is set up as, is ideal, right? Inside of each of these, we can sort of see this if we look at a transaction, there is an expense item, right, which may be dollars in or dollars out. And underneath each expense item, there's an expense item details, because you could have maybe a single bill gets split multiple ways, right? You can imagine going to a store and buying some clothing and some household products, and so you don't want the entire bill going against one of these. You want to be able to split it into both. So there's both of those things. Ooh, and that X is not centered. Another bug to fix. And I should probably hide or disable that X if I'm not allowed to click it. Again, lots of little things, just little annoyances that I want to fix. And again, I can show you what the actual theme looks like if people are interested. I just have this obnoxious if debug here for hiding it. I am not great with colors. I sometimes think I might be a teeny bit colorblind, or at least completely ignorant of what looks good and what doesn't. I only recently added in, so it's not dark theme, but I did change it. The original version of this app was hard coded with light theme colors, and I recently switched it so that it just inherits my Windows theme, which is dark on all of my systems. So we're getting dark theme mode. So blue and green is normal. Bright, ugly orange is the color of choice when in debug, just for reasons. I just wanted something to make sure. So if I care about colors, I go and turn that off. But for the most part, I just leave it fixed so that I'm very clearly in debug and I know if I've made a mistake. Little bit different now that I've kind of hijacked the location where the database goes. Okay, so the issue we have, and I'll do this one more time, is right now when it's firing up, it's supposed to be calling this generate budget, supposed to be putting items in the database. There's not items in the database, right? I got my expense categories, but at least like emergency fund and otherwise should have, there should be items in here. So I want to figure out why. So we are just going to pop open, whoop, delete the database, relaunch, and we are going to go and figure out why it is not generating my items. Because I just want this to, I don't, oh, that's not good. So that did nothing. So let's look at generate budget. Oh, I must have turned it off. So specifically, I'm looking to target this. Oh, and this I thought was rather clever. I got to show this off a little bit. So I've got a helper method, add category. It adds a category. It does some stuff. You'll note I've got these parameters at the end. And people who are familiar with the latest versions of C# will recognize this syntax as the range syntax that you can use on like arrays or anything with an index operator on it. But if we look at this, all I have done is I got a little clever and declared some range parameters. And these range parameters get passed all the way into here. And I use them to determine a range of items to add. So generate me some number of items between the start and the end value plus 1, because the random next method, the upper bound is exclusive, the lower bound is inclusive. So it's supposed to, when using percentage, go through and generate some number of items based upon these values. And it's not. So we need to fix that. Okay, so let's go and pick on this one, because this third parameter here is the percentage. And currently I haven't built out anything for the non-percentage case. So we're just going to click on that. Oh, and of course the database is not running, or is already been populated, so it doesn't hit the breakpoint. Try again. Okay, so we step in. We generate an expense category, gets added to the context, great. We go into generate items. You'll note the range has a start and an end, which is perfect. This is exactly what we want, right? So we will step in, use percentage is true. Okay, number of expense items to generate, 1. The month is 5/13, great. Generates some amount, creates a new expense category item, and then promptly does nothing with it. That would be the WAT. Okay, so yield return. So it turns out that if you don't ever return the item, it doesn't do anything. Okay. I really should just be leaving that folder open. Close up all of these. Delete, launch. Because really, I just want to have some basic test data. I normally would pull in my real data, but decided that would be a bad idea to do on stream. And so my choices were work on something else, or update this so I could work on it on stream. There we go. Now it added some expense category items. Okay, so what we've got here is is it expects the category to exist before you add items to it. Okay, that is a reasonable assumption. So context, we're going to make this an async because async. Because at some point, it's not a great async method. Let's see. I really want to do await. Let's see. Async task. Await. Come on, IntelliCode, figure it out. Add await. Come on, IntelliCode, you can do it. Give me a apply to all. You're not doing it for me. Wait. No. Why do you keep doing that? That is not... I keep hoping that it's going to automatically introduce what I want, and it's not doing it. IntelliCode suggestion. Yes, I would like an apply to all. Really prefer if you didn't. I'll type it myself if you're going to unindent my stuff. No, please don't. Okay, so that gets me there. That gets me there. We want to await the save changes. Oh, wait. Go ahead and save there. And we will await up here. And we're just going to propagate the async all the way up, I think. So you'll note I have a really bad method up here that says, please go through and do this async, because in an ideal world, you don't want to be doing this and blocking the UI thread like what I'm doing here. This is blocking the UI thread, because when the app starts here, what's going to happen? Let's see, await, async. Because when the app fires up here on startup, it's going to come in here, and this is running on the UI thread. And so it'll get down to this task run, and I only have this inside of a task run here to avoid or to attempt to avoid some of the deadlock situations. Because when you call .result or .wait on a task, you open yourself up for potential deadlocks. It is generally considered a very bad idea in nearly all cases. One of the ways to try and avoid those is to wrap these inside of a task.run. Simply due to the execution context, once you get inside of a task.run, it's less likely on the return to get to deadlock yourself, which is fine. That's what we're going to go for here. We'll do our best to not get into too much trouble. What is your problem down here? No, I don't like any of those suggestions. Okay, so we are going to do this. Okay, so we will do that. And once again, delete database. Hopefully we get past this so we can move on to some more fun stuff. But I would like this to get. So run. Do some work, do some stuff. Definitely took a little longer. Okay. So we added some items to it. You'll see that this one has a... Now when I click on it, it's got some number of items. It's technically gone back even further. Right now I just have a hard-coded list. Basically, you can pick a date here, and it will go back some number of months earlier than this. Again, my target audience was me, and this is all I need. At some point, I would love to expand this a little bit more. So this is better. This is certainly better. Should actually look at how I did this layout because I'd kind of like to change this layout to look a little bit more like this, because this looks a lot better. I should look at doing that. Okay, so that fixes that, and now what I really want to do is, yeah, because you can see expense, expense, expense. Oh, this is just a, everything always shows expense 1. I think I messed up my counter. Oh, no, because that should be I++. Why did that get expense 1, 1? Oh, these are in 2 different months. That's why. I don't have a situation where both of these occurred in the same month. Not on this one. Yep, so it's okay. So these are technically fine, but I kind of want to just do an outside counter for all of these. You know what? Let's see. Good. Let's see. 0, take 5, right? Oh, this needs to be 2-stringed. We'll just do this. I just want something to make them unique. Again, we're just going to completely and utterly abuse that range operator. Have some fun with it. I'm trying to remember what the 2-string on range is. I hope that gives me a substring back. I think it does. Let's double check. Oh, that didn't work because we didn't delete the database. So it didn't recreate. I was like, I don't know what that's going to do, but returning a 1 is definitely the wrong answer. Why are you exposed? I don't actually want you. Close. We use get kraken. Thank you very much. There. Something about like that. That'll do. That'll do. Okay, so we're going to do that. Now let's come in here, and I think we want to pretty much do the same thing. In fact, I think what I want to do is actually pull this if down lower, because I think the only difference for each of these is how we generate the amounts. Right? Because this is all of it, because if it's a percentage based one, that's going to be different than if it's a non-percentage based one. So if category use percentage, right? So we will go here, here, amount. Okay, so in the case of a percentage, I just arbitrarily pick some numbers because this is just demo data. I don't care what it is. But in the case where there is an expense category and we know the range, right? So what we want to do, let's see, if we're generating a large number of items, we probably want it to be based on the slice of the budgeted amount plus or minus, say, 10%, give or take. I want it to be real-ish looking data, maybe plus or minus 20%. We'll just let it float a little bit. So, let's see. Do we want to base it on the actual calculated number? Sure. Sure, so we'll do that. So category budgeted amount, the minimum will be the budgeted amount. See, minimum is budgeted amount divided by the number of items we're going to do. So if this were 100 and we generated 5, that gets me to 20. So 20 would be an even split. If I want to go plus or minus 20% of that, I think I'm going to split this up. I don't want to do it all in one shot. Min. How about target, right? And then the min will be target times 80%. Target times 120%. And we have to actually call next. And this needs to be, let's see, converted to an int. Right? Converted to an int. Just roll with something like that. And I think what we're going to do is this logic is pretty much going to remain. Well, it's a little different down here. You know what? Copy and paste will do. Copy and paste will do. Boom. That gets me to there. That gets me to there. Okay, let's just run it and make sure we've got some. As long as this generates me reasonable-ish data, we're going to go with it. Thinking. This is why attempt to divide by 0. Well, that sounds bad. Take me there. Oh, budgeted amount is 0. We do have items else. So how about amount? Wait, we have a case where I told it to generate a range. We should just do category budgeted amount greater than 0. Oh, and we have a bug here. We actually want that. I don't think we need that. I think that was just an issue with the case where we generate a different number of adds versus subtracts. Okay. That is not correct. That clearly is database in a bad state. Thinking. Yeah, this is taking several seconds, by the way, and it's likely due to the significant number of saves that we're doing to the database, which is certainly slowing things down. Okay. So the monthly allocations keeps track. If you've said you wanted to budget $110 a month and you've only put in $93.43, well, you are short still. Or in this case, clothing, you said you wanted to budget $120 and you're now over. The purple color probably needs to change because that worked well in light theme and does not work well in dark theme. But I think for now, this is legitimately, this is showing me good data for now. Yeah, this is at least showing me reasonably good data, and we are going to roll with it. Okay, so everybody's favorite, get cracking. Let's see. Adding in sample budget. And let's go through, push that. We've done enough stuff. View on GitHub. Right? So we will come over here and you'll note this is private at the moment. Let's fix that. Let's see. Restrict editing to collaborators only. Sure. I don't think I want the project boards yet. Markdown, that's fine. I don't think I care too much. We're going to go with allow auto merge. I'm pretty much the only one. Well, I don't have CI set up, so let's turn that off for the moment. Don't think we need to. Change repository visibility. Make public. So we will. Okay. And I'm just going to move this over here. And just like that, the repo is public. So if anybody wants to follow along, there is the link to it there. I think where we're going to go next. I did start a Git Actions branch, didn't I? I guess I do have CI turned on, which is good. It's at least running my my tests and whatnot. But as you can see, there's a bit of a problem, and I don't know exactly what the issue is. Let's see, lots of warnings. Oh, desktop bridge. Yeah, there's some issues here. We're not going to worry about it. We are not going to worry about it. Okay, what we are going to worry about is actually fixing some issues. So let's start with something simple. I think I want to focus in that main screen that launches when you initially kick it off. This guy here. There is some formatting problems that I think I would like to address. So for starters, I would like the top view here and this view to be a lot more in sync. Right? That would be ideal to me. So let's go and take a look at what that takes. And again, even though this has been a long haul of slowly changing stuff, there is a lot going on in some of this XAML. Okay, Live Property Explorer, move. Okay, so we've got an items control. This is my little chip view stuff along the top. Combo box. This is what I want. So this is my header. This is my header. So we've got each of these guys in the top. Where is... Oh, is that still in the main window view? Oh, yuck, it is. I think, okay, step one, we're going to refactor this a little bit. We're going to refactor this a little bit. So let's move this into its own control. What is the view model called for it? What is that guy called? So for this tab, budget. So let's just call it budget view. Budget view. And we are going to just relocate all of you. So this whole thing here. Let's collapse this. That's the easiest way to just go cut all the things. We're going to come over here, paste, and there's probably a few things that need to be cleaned up. Okay, so for starters, we're going to drop this, but we are going to set the design data context to the budget view model. Boom. So for those people unfamiliar with what I just did, this is an awesome feature. Okay, so Visual Studio, I think it's still under preview if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check. I think it's still a preview feature. Because it's the, yes, XAML preview features to improve MVVM productivity. Underneath preview features, underneath environment in the options. This box you want. This is good stuff. So what we did here is I would like to set the design time data context because it means the new WPF designer can use that to give me better IntelliSense as far as what is happening or when my bindings might break, that kind of thing. Even though that's an entirely runtime evaluation, the designer does its best, but it can do a lot better if you tell it, hey, here's the data context that you're going to be given at runtime. So we come in here and it's using the same stuff that like IntelliCode does for the AI to try and figure it out. And it's noticed that, hey, you name this thing budget view and you've got a budget view model. That is probably the one that you want. And it gives me a bunch of other sources, but yep, first one's right. And so it goes through and it automatically adds in the needed stuff so that you can pull this thing straight in, which is perfect. I am noticing something about what it pulled in, though, in terms of where that budget view model's namespace lives. And that is just wrong. Change namespace. Boom. Okay, so that's going to be a little wrong now. And let's rename this to view models because that's a little more in line. Okay, so that gives me a lot better setup there. And now I'm going to need a few things just kind of going down through this. So for example, I've got a command handler that previously existed in the code behind that, just clean that up too while we're in here. Boom, boom, boom. That command handler open executed is going to be back over here. So let's go and grab that. I just want to make sure that that is yeah, I was pretty sure that was going to be the only place where it was used, but before just blindly picking it up and moving it, we will move that over here to this guy's code behind. And this guy we want to do, oh, this is interesting. So this is actually a perfect example. So I have a case here where before it was at the top level, so it just went down the hierarchy. But now I've got a situation where I need this view to communicate back something to the main window. And I think the way we're going to do this is a dispatcher, or I'm sorry, not a dispatcher, a messenger, a pub sub model. Yeah, so because you'll note it does some tab controlling stuff. It moves some stuff in the view model around. I don't want to do all this stuff. That's this code here does not, this is not where we want to do this. What we would like to do instead, yeah, is we would like to post a message. So what we are going to do, we will, let's see, view model gets, and it is perfectly okay for the view to know about the view model. So budget view model from the data context, pull that out, view model, let's see, what triggered this exactly? Operation commands, application commands open. So where all is this used? Somebody else is posting this. double click. So we probably want something that's like open expense category, right? And we want to grab the parameter. So we are going to use this much of the code, right? And we will pass in category. And auto code that method for me, please. Okay, so let's go here, and we're going to move. That is not where I would like you placed. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Sure, this will be fine here. We can make you public, and then how we're going to get around this is this guy is going to post a message. So I've got some messages up here, and you'll note these are very simple things. So we'll just type it here for a minute. And I am using the new C# records. So public record open expense category. How about open history? Yeah. Expense category. Right? Oh, we want that. And then we will just move you to your own file. Boom. So we will go through and post this. And I believe this guy has a messenger already. Perfect, which is what we want. So we're just going to... So the only reason to call into the view model is the view model has the messenger that we want. We will just send a message. We don't know who, at this point, we don't know or care who needs to know that we want to open the history for this expense category. We just know that somebody does, so we're going to notify them that it happens. Okay, and then back over on, so we want most of this code. So that will trigger, publish out the message, and then anyone else can subscribe to that message and say, hey, I can handle it. In this case, I think we're just going to do it here. I'm trying to decide if I want to do it in the view model or just straight up in the view. I think we'll just do it in the view, I think. We'll do that. We'll let that guy go, and then view model. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's see here. So view model, messenger, register this, and we would like to register. Well, we can probably infer it. So this guy is going to be an I recipient of open history. So this library that I'm using for MVVM, this is the I'll just show it to you because I keep saying the name wrong and it's bothering me. So this one here, Microsoft Toolkit MVVM. For anyone familiar with MVVM Lite, this is like MVVM Lite vNext. This is awesome. This is my go-to choice for everything. So if you are looking to do anything with MVVM, highly recommended. Okay, so we're going to just dump this code in here, pull this out, and we don't need that anymore. We do need the category, but we're going to get it from somewhere else. We're going to grab it from message, expense category. That's non-nullable, and now this should still work. Okay, all of that because we went to move one little itty-bitty thing. Let's continue down from the top. Okay, refresh command should still work. Great. Keep going down. It is unhappy about this namespace. So let's go and grab that. Let's see, move you down, cut, bring you over, paste. That should make that guy a little happier, which is wonderful. This context menu, which we'll probably get to in a little bit, can stay like that. The indentation is horrible, but that'll work. Value converter is negative. So we are going to just add the namespace for this. I've gone back and forth, so you'll note this is not the standard way of adding a value converter. I have this markup value converter base class that calls new on it, which this is fine and it works. There's just a tiny gotcha. This can cause a lot of extra instantiation and slowdown. And so my opinion is it's fine when used sparingly. But I've been slowly migrating back to just static resources and adding them in there. It's really convenient because you can declare things like value converters just straight in line, which is great. But you declare too many of them, and you start to notice a bit of a bottleneck. So a lot of these ones that are deriving from markup extension are old. Okay, so that looks like it's going to work. Let's fire it up and make sure. Are old and not necessarily the way I would recommend it going forward. Sorry. Oh, that is no longer a valid namespace since we have deleted the one thing that was in it. Excellent. Oh, I don't know if we put in... We probably didn't add it back into the tab. Let's see. Yeah, we didn't. So, we're going to go with views, budget view, and we will set its data context. You'll note I'm actually getting IntelliSense on my bindings because I have that D data context set, which is exactly what you want. Let's fire that up. And hopefully, and if I double click, still works. Great. Okay, so we're going to commit that real quick. Let's see. Moved budget view to its own control. Great. Okay, so let's fix that header next. Budget view and history view. So this is the format for that. So what is there any... There's some left and right margin set on each of these. Where is the separator? Oh, there it is here. With some vertical margin. Okay, so there's not a lot going on here. Just some left and right margin of 10 and a separator underneath. So that should be easily replicated. Let's see. So this, I'm gonna put a second one there, bump you down one more, and put the separator in as well. You go into row 1. Let's see what that looks like. Much better, but it needs some top margin. Probably about the same 10, I imagine, that the other one has. So let's go with margin top. That looks much nicer. Now, the only thing that I'm not overly happy with is this spacing down here. I would like a little bit, I'd like some fixed spacing in the middle. I mean, okay, so here's the quick and dirty way of doing this, right? So we go drop this off of here with 5, right? Wait, what? Let's restart. That should have given me an extra grid. Oh, because, oh, it didn't bump everything else down. Yeah, so this needs to then become a 2. This then needs to become a 3. Right, and that'll give me a nice even split, but then it offsets that, and that's just annoying. Okay, so we're not going to go that route. That's, I think, what needs to happen. 0, 0, 10, 0. I think I just want to put some right padding on all but the last one. I think that's all I want, is some reasonably good padding on not the last one. The last one's fine. Okay. That looks better. Okay, so that will clean that up. And there was one more alignment issue over here on these X's that I wasn't happy with. So let's clean that up too while we're thinking about it. So this is the add item view. And we're looking for this little cross. And I only know that this guy here, well, what do you know? That's probably the problem. That's not right. Let's relaunch and check it again. And then we've got a ton of warnings, and there's lots of cleanup that could be happening in this repo. Ultimately, I need to track down a bunch of them and just start smashing them. So that's better, but I want a little margin on left and right. So let's give it like 3 on the sides. Ugh. Sometimes, edit and continue. You are great when you work and horrible when you don't. There, that looks a little nicer. Nice and centered. Okay, so we're going to go here. Let's see here. Fixing some margin alignment issues. Boom, boom. Okay, we'll wait to push until we're done. Okay, so ultimately, the thing I wanted to get into that I still haven't gotten to yet, right? So the problem is, right now, there is not a way of adding or editing these categories. There's just not. And so I was trying to come up with a reasonable way of doing that. Here's my working theory. I think it would be nice to almost make this behave like a data grid. So my thought is that you edit in place, because I've got a UX desire here that says no modals, because I found that it is incredibly handy when you can have data side by side. And these tabs are kind of cheating that a little bit, because it means I can't have each, because sometimes I want to see both views and I don't have an easy way of doing that. And I'm somewhat torn of how to do this, but I think that would be the easiest, because I'd love edit functionality. I want to add a lot more bits into this. but I think that's what I want. I think that's what I want. So, given that, let's see what it's going to take to do that. So, each of those items, let's see, budget view model, EX, or expense category view model, EX. So this is what each of those thingies are. Let's see, we don't need those pins anymore. So this guy has those the fields that we need because it required some calculation. He also contains this expense category view model, which has things like name, balance, budget amount, category name. And I'm thinking that it might be nice to just allow this guy to go in and out of editing states. So something like this. Let's play with the idea. Bool, let's see, is editing. All right, so we'll change this to bool is editing. Is editing. Let's see. Is editing. And then on our budget view, I'm thinking down here in our item template, I want to swap some stuff around. Let's see. So what would the view look like? Obviously, expenses and allocations and current balance might be a read-only view, perhaps, when editing. But expenses and allocations probably don't matter. I don't think I care if I'm editing this. Really, when I'm editing it, I'm looking to do things like soft delete or rename or recategorize or the things of that nature. Change the budgeted amount, most likely. So if that's what I'm looking to do, perhaps it makes the most sense to just do list box item template selector. So let's put in our own selector. We probably need to write one. Template selectors. Look at that. Let's just go here. So public class expense category selector. This is a data template selector. Okay. So when you implement a data template selector, what this does is it gives you a means of swapping out different data templates based upon effectively arbitrary criteria. So you'll note you will get the item passed to you that the template should apply to. So in our case, what we will do is let's get this into its own file first. Get in your own file. Yeah, go away. So here, what we're going to do, if item is, let's see, expense category view model EX, expense category, right? And then we'll do if expense category is editing, we're going to return one template, else return another template, right? So in an effort to do that, we're also going to just steal a little bit of this, a little bit of this magic, a little bit of this magic. We'll do editing template, default template. That sounds good. Invert those. So return editing template, otherwise default template. I'm thinking I actually want to be a little more default template. I think I want to be a little more explicit here too, because I think I only want you to be able to go into this mode if you are editing and you are selected. So I believe the container in this case, and container is list box item. And list box item is selected. Because if you click off, I effectively want that to be the cancel operation. Okay. Let's do this. So we're gonna just stop execution. We are effectively so far away from where I think edit and continue can recover. We just throw that away. So bring this guy in, add the namespace. I like short namespaces. So let's see, TS expense template selector. We're gonna do default template, and that is going to actually be this template here. Boop. And then close you up. What are you unhappy about? Okay, compile. Apparently some tests don't exist. I also started writing tests for all these things. Apparently did not write enough tests. Okay, so that handles that. I really should start writing some UI tests with XAML test. Put that thing through its paces. That's what we should do. Add that to my list. Okay, so let's just confirm. Because there's no way to get into the editing state where isEditing is true, this should still look the same. Perfect. Okay, so what I would like then is I would like to chain to put in something else, right? So let's no, thank you for helping. That's not what I wanted. Editing template. So when we go into the editing mode, we want to change it. Let's see. Sorry to interrupt, but don't worry about interrupting. I am perfectly happy to get off on tangent answering questions. Can I ask a question about custom controls? Certainly. My quick follow-up will probably be exactly what you mean by custom controls, because some people mean start from scratch and some people mean just retemplate in WPF. But fire away with the questions. Happy to answer. Also, welcome, Andrew. Okay, so we are going to close up this data template. Let's see. Do you have some kind of ground rules about what should be on XAML and what should be in CS? Ooh, that is a great question. Okay, so I'm going to caveat this answer with a lot of this will be my opinion and not necessarily rooted in anything other than my own experience. So just, I'll throw that out there. In general, I prefer to have as much as possible in my XAML. But the guiding principle is keep your code readable. So for example, you'll note that on some of this XAML, I'm nested in, I don't know how many layers, a dozen, 14 layers, and this doesn't bother me at all. Some people find this incredibly difficult to work with. And so there's a push where some people actually really like doing a lot of code in the C# side. So if you've looked at like .NET MAUI, some of the stuff that they're doing there with the Comet project that's being brought in is very much C# heavy of I want to declare all of my UI inside of my C#. My personal opinion is I find that much more difficult to read and reason about. However, it does have the advantage of being able to easily pass references around. In XAML, that gets a lot harder. If I want this thing over here to reference this variable over here, and how do I get those linked? And that can start to get to be a little confusing at times and not necessarily trivial. Whereas in C#, it's just code, and a lot of people find that much easier to reason about. So the one thing that I would say to avoid is too much mixing and matching. Like with XAML, you cannot do everything. We always have to fall into like value converters or custom markup extensions to kind of get away with stuff, because there are things that we just can't express in XAML. Simple conditionals, for example, the template selector that I just wrote, right? A simple if condition, I have no way of reasonably expressing this in XAML, which is really it's somewhat disappointing. But XAML is meant to perform layout, not necessarily logic. So if you're looking for a good kind of guiding rule of where to separate that, I would say layout related stuff I try to keep into my XAML, and logic usually works better on the C# side of things. It also depends a little bit on exactly what you're building and where. So just by means of a little bit of an explanation. So you'll note in my app here, so I'm following an MVVM pattern, and I've got some views and some view models. And you'll note these views here are just user controls. Nothing fancy about them. And I'm not putting a lot of code in my C#, but I am putting a bunch of code into the view model. So it's not to say that one is bad, but code that I put into my view model, I can write tests over, and I can decouple it from my view code so it gets easier to work with. If you aren't necessarily writing tests over your code, do whatever's easiest and what's readable. Right? One of the big advantages of MVVM is the separation of concerns. It makes it easier to test. It makes it easier to reason about your code. But if you can make your code easy to reason about without a view model, go for it. Right? At the end of the day, the guiding principle is the code should be easily readable and understandable. If it starts to feel like, oh, if I touch this method over here, then this thing over here breaks, that's a sign that probably you've got some weird coupling and linkages. Whereas MVVM is this guiding pattern to say, no, let's kind of put up some guardrails so that doesn't happen, right? I find it easy to reason about the code that way. It makes it easy so that I know where to expect things. Let's see. I think that's probably all I would say. The other, I know I said one thing and then I'm going to jump again. The other thing that varies a little bit is what you're building. So for example, I've got this bar graph, right? This is another user control, but in this case, I'm using this more like a custom control. So when you say custom control, this does get to be a little bit weird because people use things differently depending on what they're building. Like inside of the material design and XAML library, we have a lot of custom controls. And I'll just pull an example here real quick. So for example, here's the link to the library. If you're unfamiliar with it, wonderful library, absolutely love it. But for example, I'm just going to pick on something simple like the pack icon. So this is a custom control. It derives from control, and its purpose is to provide an easy way to just drop icons into your XAML. And it's made up of, like most WPF custom controls, there are two parts to it. There's the logic side of it, but in WPF, controls are what are referred to as lookless. meaning that how a control looks and how a control behaves are separated concerns. How a control behaves is controlled in the C#, but how a control looks is controlled inside of the template, which in this case here is controlled by this style. So, and specifically this template property on top of it, which, and so if you're building out a custom control, something that is intended to be lookless, potentially retemplated to look different in different situations, you sort of approach the problem differently than if you are building out, say, user controls like what I'm using for an app, right? There's a difference between effectively, say, building a library and building an app or something that will consume that library. So there's a little bit different bit of concerns there. So if you're building a custom control, there's a lot more clear lines about what goes in your C# versus your XAML, because a custom control in its purest sense, right? The behavior goes in the C# and the look goes inside of the template, which is in the XAML. You theoretically can do the template in C#, but you end up doing weird string concatenation, and don't do that. That's bad. Does that sort of answer the question? That was probably a very long-winded answer. Hopefully that helps. But I definitely do not mind questions. As you can tell, I very much love WPF and XAML, and it's very easy for me to talk about it for hours on end. Okay, so next up, I was going to put this context menu in because I wanted to, we're going to implement delete later, so we'll comment that out for now. But for now, what we want is an edit button. So a menu item. Yeah, no problem. Like I said, I will very much couch that answer in. A lot of that was very much driven by my opinion. But I have done this for 9 years now, so I have a little bit of experience. Okay, so we want to go here, and we want an edit command. And I think what we're going to do here, so command, let's see if we can get away with just an application command for this. Application commands. I thought there was an edit in here. Save, undo. Open, paste. I don't want to use open. It's not really what I'm looking for. I was hoping there was a editing commands. Boy, that sounds a lot more like what I'm looking for. Let's see. Delete. This is select. I could have sworn one of these command classes had a reasonable. What's under navigation? This is largely browsery stuff. Yeah, so let's try another one. Component. Move down. This might be better. Scroll, select. Nope. Let's see. Ribbon commands. Yeah, that's. I didn't really want to have to write my own. Might just hijack one of these. Okay, let's just hijack one of these. I'm thinking properties is probably the closest thing that I've got. Okay, and then command parameter is just going to be the item in question. And that should work. Now we need to register a handler for this. And I think we're just going to go all the way to the top. So command binding, command, static, application commands, properties, And when it is executed, about edit well, we'll name it properties executed. We'll move it into edit here in a minute. Let's see. Okay, so in here we are going to very much grab this guy off of it. We are going to need, I guess we don't need much. I mean, the minimum thing we can do is editing gets true. I think that's fine. I think that is perfectly fine. So the last thing I think I want to do is grab this guy and when selection changes, actually, do I care? Yes, because I would like, if you click off, the edit screen to go away. Maybe it doesn't matter. No, that really should be a cancel operation. So this should go through. I almost want to just go through the, let's see, var list box. We'll just pull that list box out. We'll just go through each of its items. Items of type list box item, and then if item is, so if the item is not selected, we just want to and item data context is, I'm doing the pattern matching here simply because I have this idea of turning virtualization on. And so I want to keep that in mind as we go. It's not a big deal because this list is never expected to, the list of expense categories is never expected to be huge. Okay, let's, oh, we didn't actually put a template in for that, did we? Yeah, we just got a blank template. So let's put in a quick template real quick. So text block, text, binding, name, I'll just do string format, editing, right? That way we get a little something in there. Ultimately, we're going to do a grid and all of that. Close that tag and relaunch. Okay, so I should be able to right click. Oh, that's fun. By using the commands, I now have F4 as an option too. That's cool. That didn't, so I guess, so it didn't do what I expected. Let's just confirm that we got to here first of all. We did get to here. The parameter set it is editing is going to true. The template selector doesn't refire though. I'm wondering now if the template selector is the right solution, or if perhaps rather than a template selector, we should just toggle the visibility of items. Yuck. Yuck, 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 yuck. So that is toggling, and I'm guessing I'm not coming back into here. Yeah, so as we toggle these things, but we should have hit our selector on the beginning path. Let's just make sure we hit it on startup, because we should hit it, yeah, some number of times. I don't think there's a way to tell this guy to trigger again. This may be a fool's errand. I think what we're going to do instead then is, rather than using a template selector, I think we've already got an item container style. We do. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to change this up a little bit. So first of all, we're going to take this template. We're going to move this up into resources, just because this is, even I have a limit of how much nesting I can handle. And we're going to give this guy a key. So how about default category template, right? And then we'll grab the other one, come up here, put it here, and we'll do X key editing category template. Yeah, something like that. Something like that, I think. That way there's a little bit of stuff there. That'll go well. Okay, so we're going to get rid of the template selector. That guy goes away. We'll delete the thing later. But what we'll do is we'll come down here to this item container style. So within the items control, in this case a list box, you've got the container item, which is a list box item, and we can set the style on it. Inside of the list box item is the content, and that's normally where the template would get applied. So what that means is here we can add a trigger, and we can do a data trigger. Actually, we could do a multi-data trigger. Right, and so this guy will have a couple conditions, and we will go condition 1 is the I think this is going to want a binding. I'm pretty sure so it reuses the same object for the multi-trigger and the multi-data trigger, and I'm pretty sure I need to do this when you're inside of a data trigger because you're using bindings. So relative source self. So when that is true, right, and condition binding is editing, and that is also true, these conditions are anded together, we are going to go setter property template, and the value for this guy will be our static resource. What do we call it? Category. I've already forgotten my name. Editing category template. Oh, this is a control template, isn't it? It is. I don't think template's what I want. I think content template is what I want. And then the default value will just be up here, and default category template. So we'll use the default category template unless both of these conditions are true. And then we'll switch to the editing category template. There. And because a binding is watching the property, now when property change gets raised, the trigger will fire, rechange the content template, which should cause the UI to update. Edit. Congratulations. Yes. Yes. We are now editing clothing. We can click off and close. Oh. Apparently the click off is not working. So let's, because it feels weird to be able to do this. Let's continue past it because that's on the editing. So I would expect this guy, items, iterate. What are the items? Oh, these are not what I wanted. I wanted the actual container. I guess what we could do is rely on removed items. Let's do that. That's probably just as good. So let's do e dot removed items of type view model. So if you were removed from selection, we no longer need to check against it. There, we'll see if that works a little better. Because what I'd like to do is build out a nice editing view. There. Then I click back. Perfect. And so if I go editing, control clicking there, edit. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, that feels a lot better. I thought about doing like a pop-up deal. I just don't like it. I don't like it. Pop-ups have their own problems. Okay, so let's figure out what this template needs to look like now. So this guy, what do we want it to look like? So I don't think it makes a big difference. We can leverage the grid columns because we're in a shared size scope, which is how, because each of these list items has their own grid. But because the grids have a shared size scope, the width of each of these columns between all of the grids is being kept in sync, which is great. That's exactly what we want. So when we edit, we could take advantage of that, but I don't think we actually care. So let's think for a moment. The things that we want to edit when we come into here. There's a few features that I'm prepping for. So one, I have a desired feature of having caps on some of these expense categories. So basically, if we put money into one of the categories, at a certain point we say that's enough, we don't need to add any more to it. We're basically just building up some sort of buffer for a rainy day type deal, right? So like if you keep an emergency fund of stuff in like an easy access savings account, most people say somewhere between like 3 to 6 months of expenses is usually what you should have on hand for an emergency fund. But at a certain point, if you know your monthly budget is, in this case, say $1,275, you times that by 6, you really only need a cap up to 6 times that number, and that's really the max. At that point, when you're bringing in more money, you don't want it to try and allocate that 10%. You want it to realize, hey, I'm already at my cap, let's stop. So we want to add a cap being feature. I want a soft delete feature because oftentimes you add these categories and you don't need them anymore. So we need some sort of soft delete and effectively undelete. So I imagine a little trash candy icon in here or something we want. We want to be able to edit the name, and we want to be able to edit the budgeted amount and the budgeted amount type, because there's both amount and percentage. So I'm thinking 2 radio buttons. Yeah, so let's split this up into a grid, I think. So we're going to start here. And maybe we should have this in a group box. Would that make sense? I think it would, actually. So let's put a group box in, because I like the idea of a group box. Header, edit, category. So we'll just do something like that. And inside of the group box, we're gonna slap in our grid. And so I'm thinking we've got a lot of horizontal space. Let's see. So let's see if we can get away with a single row with lots of columns. Probably. We'll work with it. So let's see. Column definitions. First thing that we want is we're going to want a column with, let's just go with 1 star for now. No, not 18, 1 star. I realize that's the same as this, which is the same as omitting it. We're going to leave it like that for a minute because I think we may change it. And inside of that, we're going to do a text box. Right? So let's do here, and then let's do a hint assist. Right? Come on, go find it. Do I not have the material design namespace added in here yet? Well, that's just not fun. I don't appear to have the material design namespace. Let's get rid of you. We aren't going to use you anymore. Let's go grab that real quick, because everybody needs a little material design. Everybody. So let's grab that guy. Just bring you in. So this guy is going to need material design hint assist. That's a colon. Let's see. The hint is going to be name. And I think we're also going to make it a floating hint. Hint assist. What is the setting to? Not 100% sure that's right. Okay, and obviously the most important thing here is binding this to the name. So we're going to need that. At some point, we're going to need a save button. So let's just button content save. All right. We will need that at some point. It's probably going to just be a save icon. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, so after that, we want 2 radio buttons to toggle between either budgeted amount or budgeted percentage. So let's do radio button content amount, and trying to decide if I should put these in. Yeah, let's. I think I want these guys to move as a unit. Let's see, orientation horizontal. So I'd like that to go there. I'd like this to be percentage. And then I'm going to need a text box at the end. Hint name. probably is going to need a hint. I don't know what to do because what this text box is going to do is going to change based upon which radio button is selected. We're going to see how that works. So we're just going to go here. And even this binding is going to change depending on what's selected. Okay, but we do want to make sure this guy has a min width of at least, say, 100. Okay, so after that, oh, and we need to put this guy in the second grid column 1, right? So we got to shift him over. So let's see what's after that. Is that really it? We do want a category. So let's do another one here. Okay, so category. So we do want that. Let's see, this should be grid column 2. Let's see, how is that looking? This is not the group box style that I want. Let me go and look at the demo application. So if you're ever interested in figuring out what is all in material design, so underneath the releases, there is an artifact for the demo app that you can download the pre-compiled version. You get something like this. And we can go and look at group boxes. I thought there was better options than this. I think I was confusing it with the outline one. Yeah, maybe a group box might not be what we want. Okay, so regardless though, we've got some issues. So the first thing we'll note is this guy shoved all the way to the left. And the reason that occurs, let's just comment out this button for a moment, is the container typically is left aligned on list boxes. But we can fix that when we go into edit mode, setter property horizontal alignment value stretch. That didn't do it, huh? Let's look at it and snoop real quick. Why did you no stretch? So let's see, there's the group box. So list box item is stretching. Grid is stretching. Ripple, grid, content presenter. So horizontal content alignment. Boom. There we go. So now we're all the way across. Okay, so when we start editing, we're getting that. I don't mind. There needs to be a bit of a, okay, so few things I don't like already. So I don't like how close these things are getting, so I want at least a margin of 5 on the horizontal axis. Just to, especially with these little lines here, those aren't playing well. And then I want to put you down on the bottom, vertical alignment bottom, because yeah, that just lines up nicer. I'm wondering if maybe I stack amount and percentage on top of each other. That might look better. That might look better. So let's do this. Let's make this a grid, I guess. Boom. And grid column definitions. Let's see. Width auto. And then grid row definitions. Height auto. Okay, so 0, 0, that's correct. This should be grid row 1. This should be grid row 0, grid column, hang on, column 1, row 0, grid row span of 2, and then vertical alignment bottom. So I'm going to put them in top right hand corner, but let them drop all the way to the floor. All right, so that gets me into something, oh, okay, that's a little nicer. I like that better. I don't like how my clicks are making it all the way through. I would like it if these were not possible. So let's try this. Background. I'm just going to go with white for the moment. Let's see. How do I suppress clicking letting the click go all the way through? Because I suspect it's picking it up on the way down, not on the way up. How do I suppress that? Because I'd really like it if that didn't show all the way through. I think what we can do though is background. Let's see, we can do dynamic resource, material design paper. There. So even though you see it, it's very much, this gives the impression of floating above, which is what we want. So that's kind of nice. And then you can F4 in. Whoa. Apparently the keyboard command does not do that. So let's do some pattern matching then. Probably need to track down why the hotkey isn't passing the parameter, but that will at least get us past the initial problem. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so this is a little better. This at least gives me a reasonable start. I'm just trying to think of how I want to go about binding this. Oh, we've missed the last the last bit. So we need width auto, and then let's do grid column on the end, style, see, material design, flat button, and then the content, I usually just go with the material design. Let's see, pack icon, kind of, I think, isn't there like a save, content save? That one's probably going to be close to what I want. Yeah, something more akin to that, right? So that gets me, I probably want a little more control over the pack icon, but for now that will do. So let's slap a command on here. Command x static application commands save command parameter binding this guy, and then same thing here. We're just gonna pick that up. Okay, so we gotta do something with it when we hit save. We'll just confirm that that actually works. I'm sort of thinking that I might do a nested view model for the edit. There, and that guy came through just fine. Perfect. So now we just need to do some saving. So if e dot parameter is nope, expense category. All right, so we will do category editing gets false. So that'll be, at some point we'll need to do some amount of saving, and that toggling to is editing, I might leave this up in the code behind and leave and put like a save method on the view model that returns a bool or similar. Just thinking that that might be cleaner. I think that's okay. I think that's okay. I'm wondering if it might be a little more clever to swap out the data context when you go into edit mode. I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure. What do I want? What is the API I'd like to work with here? I'd like to have a view model. Though, what am I actually gaining? I suppose the simplest option right now to get the functionality I need, this expense category view model EX, as I've so poorly named it, its entire purpose in life is to support this view. So if this view is what it's needing to support, then it makes most sense to just have it work here. Yeah, I think that makes, I think we just slap it all on right here. So we need to add a few things. So private string editing name, because I want to be able to cancel, right? I don't want to just go in when I click off, I want it to actually effectively reset. So let's see, ref editing name. I think this will probably work just fine. This will give me the control that I need to tweak that up as much as I want. Oh, that is not set property. That is set properties, which is a very different thing. Okay, so I want to change this up too, because so if the value changes and value is false, or maybe we should do this every time the value goes to true. When the value goes to true, editing name gets name. So when this gets when the editing flag gets toggled, we want to kick this over. So we want to do the same thing with category. Boom, boom. And then so we will do this here, editing category. Okay, so before we get into the weird amount stuff, let's just get this much working. So this happens here. Let's grab the view model. I might just give myself a nice little private, boom, private budget view model, lambda, there, expression bodied member. We had this logic in too many places. Now we can just do that. Nice, simple, no thinking. So, and view model dot save changes, right? We will do that. We will have a save changes option. That will work. Okay, we'll just make this guy public. And I do not want you here. I would like to collapse. We'll go here. Okay, so this guy should have access to the context, which he does. So, step one, context. We need to find the appropriate category. Let's see, go and get it. Category dot get it by ID. Let's see, DB category. And we'll just, so let's do this, because that can certainly return null, is, we'll pattern match in there. So the outside of this is going to return false, because that clearly didn't work. And let's make this an async task. Keep everything nice and snappy. Okay, so db category dot name gets editing name, and do editing category name. And after the save changes, I think we just update directly. So category name gets category editing name. Though we probably don't want that. We would probably prefer to rely on the DB value, not something that's bound. And so this becomes category name. And then this return true. Okay, so let's test it. And of course it fails, naturally. Bool and task bool. So this is where we get into some wacky stuff. To do debounce. So there is a problem with async void in that if you rapidly click the button, it can kick off this same operation multiple times. So, but as there is a limited number of users for this app, i.e. me, we're going to just trust the user to not be an idiot. Okay. Oh, so I don't like that double click thing going on. Clothing, edit, personal, edit, save. Oh, because we did not change our bindings. So this is, besides pulling out bad Visual Studio, we need to change the bindings in our template to point to the new properties. So editing name, editing category. Real quick, while we're in here, I think one thing that I want to do, this double click command, I want to turn this off while editing. So we're gonna just X null that guy. That way the double click doesn't accidentally fire while editing, because that's just obnoxious. I've already done it now twice, so clearly the user is going to do it multiple times. So edit, save. You'll note the category switched. It's now down here. If we want to put it back, boom. So that's pretty good. I think I'm just about at my time limit for tonight. So in the interest of committing this, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to comment out this grid, leave the rest, because this much works currently, and check it in. Let's do this. Starting work on edit mode for categories. Boom. We're going to push that up. Excellent. once again, for anyone who wants the link, again, I'm hoping to get this to a point where I can point people at this as a good example of something realish. You'll note that I also have like an MSIX installer I've rolled with this. I looked at wrapping that into my pipeline, and whoo boy, there is a little bit of effort involved with that. So that'll be fun. But I would like to get this thing rolling all the way complete with unit tests, UI tests, the whole 9 yards, just to show a completed, reasonable app. Who knows? We may even go far enough to publish it on the store. So if that's something people are interested in seeing more of, this was really just a passion project of mine and what I was wanting to work on this week anyway. So I figured, why not stream it? Share some of what I've been doing and playing around with. So as always, happy coding. Thank you guys for coming out. We'll see y'all next time. Have a good week.